From the plains to every town, we're building futures, breaking ground. Teachers rising, voices strong, leading change where we belong. It's about the hearts we raise, lighting up the brighter days. Kansas leads, we stand together, stronger now than ever, ever. Learning, growing, planting seeds, shaping tomorrow. Kansas leads. Tomorrow, Kansas leads.
Hello, guys. Welcome to, I believe this is episode 4 of season 2 of Leeds Lounge. We're still waiting on that sponsor. If anybody wants to provide some shirts or cups, I'm sure Dwayne and I will love anything that we can get there. Today on Lounge, we are welcoming a true powerhouse in the world of museums, innovation, and education. Someone whose leadership is literally lifting learning to new heights. He's a pilot. He joined Exploration Place in 2019, bringing with him over a decade of museum leadership experience that expands all over the place. From the Natural Museums of Scotland to the Commemorative Air Force, which is the world's largest flying museum. He has turned history, science, and imagination into hands-on, high-flying experiences for learners of all ages. Before he landing here in the Midwest, he serves as the executive director of the Comic-Con Museum in San Diego. I'm a real nerd, so I love that tidbit about you. Where pop culture meet education in some seriously creative ways. Prior to that, he spent 11 years leading the Experimental Aircraft Association Museum in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. We'll forgive him for the Patriots or the Packers tie-in there. He transformed it into a hub of STEM learning, career development, and even summer camps that inspired the next generation of innovators. He holds a first-class honors degree in modern history from the University of Leeds and a postgraduate diploma in museum and gallery studies with distinction from St. Andrews in Scotland. Like I said, guys, he's from all over the place. He's originally from England, but he has made his home here in the United States since 2001. We are lucky that he has decided to bring his passion, vision, and curiosity right here to Kansas. This guest is also still more Googleable than me, and he requires an assistant. So that's always my goal. Gotta find someone that has a little bit more Google power than I do. Please, without further ado, welcome to Leeds Lounge, the man who helps make exploration possible, Adam Smith. Welcome, sir.
Wow, that's possibly the biggest introduction I've ever had in my life. Thanks, Jordan. Hope I can live up to at least half of it.
Oh, when we do this, we do it right, Adam. So no, we're so lucky to have you. And I apologize for hopping on late. So Adam, thank you. Thank you for taking the time and being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Our two listeners will appreciate Dwayne. Dwayne had to meet with a parent after school. And in true teaching fashion, the day is never over when it's over. So Dwayne got home and now he's on here. So let's see. Let's start with, tell us a little bit about your background. Maybe things I didn't cover because I know all that information came from the Exploration Place website, by the way. That's just explained in a different way. But give us your background, what got you interested in museums and history. It sounds like aviation is a real passion of yours.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start by saying my mother was a teacher, and I don't even know if this would even be allowed nowadays, but when I was really small, before I started school, she just used to take me to school, and I would sit in the class while she taught, and I was probably only 3 and 4 years old. And I do feel like I maybe got a head start on life there because I entered real school, with a couple of years of school experience ahead of me. And but it probably does mean something that I'm the son of a teacher because I think I've always felt connected to the education system and to the different flavors of teacher that there are out there in this world. And I think actually my mother is my biggest inspiration in life. Like a lot of what I do, I'm so grateful she's still alive. And I feel like I channel her somehow. She's getting up there in years, but she still inspires me. Even late in life, she's taken up pottery and clog dancing and and just always finding something new and joyful. When maybe we'll come back to that. But I think, my parents in general were a huge inspiration and on me. Like as a child, we visited a lot of museums. We went to visit historic sites. It was a huge part of my upbringing. And got to that point in my life where, you got to decide what are you going to do with your life and what kind of job do you want. And for me, I've always loved history. Even from growing up in England, I would go in the garden and just dig around in the dirt, and you would find old things, pieces of clay pipe from the 17th century or whatever. And again, back to my mom, she would help me by telling me to catalog them, write them down in a book and draw them, and that there was some sort of guiding force there that got me connected to history. And so when it came to time to get a job, it was like, okay, how do I have a job that means I can still be involved in the past? So it was either be a history teacher, be an archaeologist, or work in museums. And I think all three of those were options for me for a while. But you mentioned I went to St. Andrews, and I went up there. It's a beautiful medieval city in Scotland. There's an old ruins of an old cathedral, a castle, and it was just so romantic to me that I ended up doing the museum studies course, and I turned into being a really good choice for me. Museums have become my life and my vocation, and something I'm still really passionate about. Whenever I travel, it's not a job when you just enjoy it, and I still take inspiration from different places that I go to. So feel really lucky that, because I think not everybody finds that place in the world that where their work is also their passion. But my understanding is the conference you guys are doing at Exploration Place is sort of, it's about making sure that our teachers keep connected with that passion and that joy that originally brought them into the classroom in the first place.
Yep, 100%. I'm actually a history teacher. I teach fifth grade science and social studies. So I teach U.S. history, 13 colonies to the American Revolution. But I have a huge history nerd bone in and of myself. I love world history, so that really resonated with me, man.
Love it. I love it. So, if you don't mind me asking, what did your mother teach, and how long did she teach?
Um, well, she sort of had two teaching careers. Like she started and then gave up for quite a while to raise a family, and then when we all got old enough to feed ourselves, she went back into the classroom. In British terms, we call it infant school. You'd call it elementary. So the definitely the younger end of the spectrum.
So, because I teach kindergarten myself, so no, that's phenomenal. So, noticing your background with the all of the museums and everything, I couldn't help but notice the wide array, the variety of the types of museums that you worked in. So, in your intro, like Jordan mentioned, like the ones about the planes and everything, the aviation museums. But the one that really jumped out to me was the Comic-Con. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was a bit of a deviation for me because prior to working for Comic Con, I'd done 3 aviation museums in a row, and I'd really sort of, I don't know, almost got defined by aviation because I'd worked in it for so long, and got very knowledgeable about airplanes and airplane history and learned to fly myself and things like that. But I think it is actually one of the best things I ever did going to Comic Con because it in some ways it got me out of a rut or something. It so Comic Con International is based in San Diego and dates from the late 60s, early 70s, and the organization became defined by this amazing event that they run every July in San Diego. Just to contextualize it a bit, we would put 500,000 tickets on sale on a Saturday morning, usually in December, and they would sell out like instantly. This thing became extremely popular. In the 2000s, it built up in the 70s, 80s, 90s as a comic convention. So a lot of it was based around comic art and the creators, but somehow with the whole Marvel universe and it just got a life of its own, and it's just an unbelievable event. It's hard to get a ticket to, and you know like we would employ people that their only job all year round, full-time job, just to plan and manage the queuing at this event. People camping out all night just to get into Hall H and things like that. It was really a very interesting organization, very interesting vibe to be around. I was brought in specifically because they wanted to start a museum. So I don't know if you know San Diego, there's Balboa Park, which is one of the great public parks in the world. And Comic Con was able to get one of the buildings there and had a vision to be, at the time there were 16 museums in Balboa Park, and over time we built and opened the 17th, the Comic Con Museum. So that was an interesting time for me. It was, I don't know, sometimes life goes in different sort of paces, and it was one of those times in my life that like a lot happened really quickly. We were on a very accelerated time frame, and in just a couple of years ended up doing a tremendous amount. Got the museum opened. Unfortunately, the pandemic came along and kind of, I don't know, it disrupted a lot of different things in this world, and in that time frame, I moved here for family reasons mainly. But it is up and running there in Balboa Park. I gotta say, crazily, I've been here 6 years now. I haven't been back, and I look forward to my next visit. But it was definitely a interesting time. I think maybe the enduring thing that I've definitely carried from my time at Comic Con into my work here at Exploration Place in Wichita, it is just understanding how important popular culture is in our society. Really is a powerful thing, and it's helped to sort of inform some of my programming choices here. One of the events we've just done that's most recent in my mind is we do a drone light festival every year, and this year we themed that around the music of John Williams, and that was definitely a conscious decision on my part, channeling some of my Comic Con experience that people love not just Star Wars and Jaws but Harry Potter and Close Encounters and all those things. And we just had a really successful event, and I think it's just a little example of how what I learned in my time with Comic Con it's been applicable to a science museum.
I love it. And the reason I brought that up is because like our overall theme for our conference is bringing that joy back to the classroom and back into our lives. And when I've seen the people that attend, like obviously like most people enjoy going to museums, but the amount of energy and joy that you see at those Comic-Con events, like it's unreal. And I'm pretty confident that our attendees to our conference, we're going to kind of get that same feel. I know Jordan and I, like, we may not dress up, but we are characters in our own right. So we're going to try to bring that same energy when we come and see you in Wichita.
Love it.
You might like this. I've been to the Comic-Con in Kansas City, right? Not near as big, but it's still a pretty big thing. I dressed up as my teacher idol at that Comic-Con. I went as Mr. Feeney, Boy Meets World. I
Love it.
I shaved. I just had this on. I went to the thrift store and I found like the Mr. Feeney suit and I carried around a briefcase. Yeah, that was my teacher idol. Um, so I've heard via birds that you are very passionate about or had something to do with the Sunflower Summer program. Or talk to us about that.
Um, yeah, that for those that don't know, that program started with in the State Department of Education during the pandemic. So there was some funding available to help kids who lost learning opportunities during the pandemic catch up. And I thought right away it was a very creative idea. It's actually quite rare in my life that I've seen a large bureaucracy come up with something truly creative and innovative. Usually those things aren't associated with one another. But really a big tip of the hat to the State Department of Education because just sort of they just created this thing called Sunflower Summer, and right out of the gate it was simple, effective, and really moved the needle in terms of getting our kids and our families into places like exploration plays. I've since learned that it was the thinking behind it was someone who's now on my board here at Exploration Place, Diane Smokorowski, known to many as Smoke. Very, if you talk about the epitome of a teacher that brings joy into the classroom or into our hearts and lives, she epitomizes that. And so, like, immediately the first summer of Sunflower Summer, I just felt this is a great program that, like sometimes really good programs that they're simple and it was simple, effective, but there was something just my eyeballs told me it was bringing a lot of diversity into the museum. I could just see I try and take a walk around Exploration Place every day, just give me a bit of exercise, but also, I always learn something just from watching human behavior. And I just felt there was this wave of diversity came in. So that it ran for 3 summers and then it was, really popular with our families. It basically gave free admission for a limited period of time to over 100 museums, galleries, zoos in the state of Kansas. And actually, just that period of time that I lived in California, it is a huge benefit to California citizens that you get a discount for Disney. People love that. And I was starting to get a little bit of that vibe here in Kansas, like here is a perk to living in Kansas and raising a family in Kansas. And then there came a point where it was going to go away because the funding ran out, and it was really bothering me, actually. I think some of it is if you work in museums, there's like this tension in the world of museums that sometimes you have to charge for admission in a world that some people feel museums should be free admission. So I've lived my whole life in the middle of that tension. Look, when I've worked in museums that have an admission charge, you're still looking for ways for it not to be a barrier to those that can't afford to come. I've also worked in free museums, and it's actually not always the land of milk and honey when you work in a free museum, because it's weird that people, when it's free, people don't value it, so and one of the geniuses of Sunflower Summer for me was that it was free, but only for 10 weeks. So then it becomes almost like a deal that you're like, I got to get that deal before it expires. And so people still value it, but they're able to come, and and so it was really bothering me that it was going away. So I did spend some personal time, just went up to Topeka and started knocking on a few doors and just trying to see if we could save this program, and was really thrilled that we were able to get the program off of this temporary COVID funding and into the state's budget on an annual basis. Now, in that transition, it moved from education to Department of Commerce and to be understood as more of a tourism program. So we've had a couple of years. It got shaky this year. I had to go and spend more time, and we had to create a whole campaign called Save Sunflower Summer. That I must admit, I was very touched that in 7 days, 30,000 people signed that petition, and that tells you that that has become a really beloved program in our state and with our families. So we're heading into annual renewal season again, and I'm hopeful that we can keep this program going, because again, I got to say, in my lifetime, I can't think of a program that's moved the needle more. And I mean, it does cost money, but compared to some other things we could be spending that money on, it's it's definitely having an impact. And we did an economic impact study. For every dollar the state invests in Sunflower Summer, it gets $6 back in terms of internal tourism and people not going to Disney or wherever. And we've even got examples where people have chosen to stay here in Kansas rather than travel on a out-of-state vacation.
Wow.
I mean, I think
And sorry, Jordan, I wanted to give a quick shout out because I know Jordan would agree, like we feel so blessed during when the beginning of COVID, we felt like we were in a good place because obviously things were chaotic, but with our leadership, with people like Dr. Randy Watson and leaning on the amazing people and the teachers like Smoke, and we were able to get things started, for example, like the what you just spoke of, but we felt like we were pretty spoiled. We have amazing leadership here in the state of Kansas, so to be able to put programs like this into place and then have the support to keep it going. So thank you for everything that you've done to make that possible.
well, I just think the program's amazing. I work in a smaller Title I district right outside of Topeka,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, a majority of my students have probably never left Topeka because they don't have the money for it. But this, to your point, this program opens up that door to them. Like it takes away that financial barrier of we can't go to this place because it costs too much. Well, it's free. Just gotta get there. So yeah, it's great, and I promote it with my kids every single year. So um let's see. We've talked a lot. We've actually talked a little bit about that. I think Sunflower Summer is one of the ways that we bring joy back into education, and we make education, fun again. I think that's the theme of our entire conference, as we said this go around, is just our job. When you look at a lot of aspects of education right now and society right now, it's doom and gloom. It's everyone's thinking the worst case scenario. Like how do we bring joy back into education and lives and students again? Like how do we do that?
Well, first of all, I want to mention that I absolutely love the mission statement that I've got here at Exploration Place. Worked in a bunch of different organizations, and sometimes your mission statements are great, and sometimes they're not. And but the one I've got here, I've memorized it. It's to inspire a deeper interest in science and technology through creative and fun experiences for all. And there are some really important things in that mission statement. First of all, the first two words of it are to inspire. It's not to teach. we're saying that our mission as an organization is not to transfer knowledge, it's to inspire. And I think as I sort of approach the sort of last part of my career, I think there's a real sort of deep truth to that it's the inspiration that really matters. When people are inspired and fired up inside of themselves, they will, especially in this world where pretty much all knowledge is available to us freely. When you think about YouTube or Wikipedia or ChatGPT or whatever, the availability of knowledge to it is, it's unprecedented how available it is. So I think, but the desire to learn comes from within, and it comes from these points of inspiration. Back to that drone show I was telling you about, it's one of my favorite events because when those drones go up in the sky and I've got a few thousand people on my grounds, you can hear the gasps of amazement from those kids. And it's like, well, I can't measure this in any empirical way, but I know that I am accomplishing my mission right now. These kids will not forget this. And some proportion of them it'll mean something to their interest in science or drones or or whatever. Had a really nice interaction last week. In fact, his card is sitting here on my desk. I don't think he would mind me naming him. Is a guy called Derek Ledgerwood, and he came to me after a presentation that I did last week, and he said, "This place inspired me when I was a kid." I think he's in his early 30s now, and he was telling a story of visiting Exploration Place on a field trip. Probably not long after we opened in the year 2000, and he told me a long story that I probably haven't got time to go into, but the conclusion of the story is I got interested in science. I became a nuclear scientist, and I've just come back to Wichita after doing like the first half of my career on board a Navy aircraft carrier looking after its nuclear reactor. And I shared that story with our board and with our founders because I said, it's an anecdote, but it's an example of like fundamentally what we're trying to do as an organization. So why am I sort of being long-winded and talking about this stuff I think I believe that the way I try and manage my people here at Exploration Place, my general philosophy on life is build on the positives, build on the successes. I don't think you really get anywhere beating people up on what they're not accomplishing or what they're not good at or not able to do. Somehow you just get a lot further by saying, let's build on the good things. And those models of inspiration. Let's use people like Diane Smokorowski to inspire us. If you want, for me, I try and be an optimist. One of the most interesting books that I ever read was by a guy called Peter Diamandis called Abundance, and it's just makes the case very powerfully through data. There has never been a better time in the history of the human race to be alive than right now. There's less war, there's less disease, there's less famine, there's more education, there's more equality, etc. And sometimes we forget that because we're surrounded by stories, the narratives that maybe try and tell us something else. But, empirically, it's a great time to be alive. And just channeling that into where we're at right now, I think that AI is a very fundamental force. I think having lived through a lot of change in my life, a lot of technologies and personal computers and internet and smartphones and things like that, I think AI is going to be like the biggest of them all. And I know there's concerns about that, but on the optimistic abundance side of that conversation, I think it could create a lot of space to bring joy back into the classroom in terms of creative lesson planning and, clearing some of the mundane, the drudgery, to open up the creative space to build relationships, have fun, bring that personal touch back into the classroom, that I think is extremely valuable when we have the time to do it.
That's beautiful. I think to go with what you say, I think AI. One of the things I talk about is like we are currently like we are at the worst version of AI we will ever have.
Yeah.
And that goes along with what you were just saying. Like it's only gonna get better. It's only gonna become a more powerful thing. And yeah, absolutely, man.
Well, it is it is the worst time right now because we're in that, the shock of what it's going to be is hitting us, and that means shock of change. Now, in my previous job at Comic-Con, it is a massively controversial thing because the people that have a special talent to be able to translate from the human brain to they can illustrate or draw really well. They have what for the last several thousand years has been a special talent. Unfortunately, their talent is not going to be so special anymore. They're going through what my great grandparents went through. They were hand loom weavers. They had a special talent to make cloth. And then the power loom came along and they didn't, it automated what was their special talent. And it was not a great time for hand loom weavers 200 years ago. But overall, it was better for the human race, I think. And that's what's going to happen AI is a very empowering technology for people that don't have that special talent. Means that everybody can create. And on some level, I think that's cool.
Absolutely. I relate it like when the internet came along. It was those people, the historians that kept all of that knowledge and people relied on them. They had that special talent where now that information's freely at our fingertips at any time. So now like those people are still valuable, but it's like now there's just a lot more people that can do that. So they
Yeah.
need to find a new way to adapt. But I want to say thank you for um, like the talk about how you inspire and ignite that the flame in the attendees of the museums and everything, because like that's as a classroom teacher, that's what we all want. And like when you talked about the show, the light show, the drones, the oohs and ahs, like those are the moments that bring us joy. So I think we do need to share our stories because we all have those positive moments. We all have those things. So speaking more about the positive and sharing that, I absolutely love that.
The Zoom overlords, I guess if we have a sponsor, it is Zoom, are telling us that we have 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in our time. So let's go to Adam. What are some of the things that our participants are going to be able to do Friday night? I know we're watching Stellar. Can you tell us anything about Stellar, about the Dome Theater, or what do we got in store there?
Yeah, well, first of all, if we do get boosted, thanks for you and thanks for all you do. Thanks to all our teachers for what you do. We're going to have an interactive evening. First of all, hopefully just being in a location like Exploration Place and the architecture and the commitment we have to a cathedral of learning. The Dome Theater for me is a special place. There's only two of them in Kansas, and everybody's got a TV now with infinite content on it. But nobody's got a Dome Theater, and for me, it's a place that's sort of at the intersection of watching a movie but in this collaborative, immersive space. And the Stellas, which we're going to show you on the 7th, it was made by a really talented group out of Poland, of all places, and they've I think really pushed the boundaries of animation and immersion. It was designed for a dome theater, so it's kind of hard to explain, but there's something, your field of view is this wide, but you've also got this peripheral vision, and they created a film that's it's kind of like Pixar, that quality of animation, but it's tied to curriculum. It's a very clever sort of weaving of stories of ecology and science into just a good sort of understanding of this world we live in and why we should take care of it.
Very cool. My one thing, Dwayne, before you take us out, live November 3rd, 7 o'clock. Be there so you guys can get all the information you need about our conference. Take it home, Dwayne.
Adam, thank you again. From our classroom to yours, we see you, we get you, and we're right there with you. We'll see you next time in the lounge.
We lift each other every day, advocating, taking part. Service starts within the heart. It's about the dreams we chase, every child a brighter place. Kansas Leaf, we stand together, stronger now than ever, ever. Learning, growing, planting seeds, shaping tomorrow. Kansas Leaf. Tomorrow, Kansas Leaf. Leadership in every hand, voices rising across the land.